Raikan Topani is for Thai drama lovers only. Sawadee, welcome to the very first episode of Axelle's Guide to Thai Dramas. I am Axelle, and the show we are talking about today is 2gether, the series. Now, before we start, as any new show, I want to explain a little bit the concept of this. So the concept is very simple. It is that every week I will come and review a show. Most of the time it will be a show that just finished airing. So I watched it live as it aired. And I want to kind of review it once it ends. But sometimes I will also review older shows. And of course I will ask polls and stuff like that. So you guys can tell me which shows you want me to review. Now, this podcast / show has been kind of a long time coming, as I have brainstormed it since January 2025 and actually started recording a few months later. So don't look at the date of the first episode because and there's been many reasons. I think, my main incentive for creating this podcast was that I wanted to fall back in love with Thai dramas again. If you don't know my story at all, I will say it very quickly. I started watching Thai dramas in 2017 and they have changed the course of my life. I have moved to Thailand in 2022 and it was in big part because of Thai dramas and my love for them. And so for me, they are some of the most life-changing pieces of entertainment that I've ever consumed. And unfortunately, since 2022, I have felt my love for Thai dramas kind of diminish, and I've been kind of going through the motions, unfortunately. I think there's been many factors for that. I think, first of all, usually, I don't really agree with the popular opinion. So basically, if you look at any huge popular shows, Thai dramas, mostly it's BL shows, right? But even now GL shows, I feel like I don't really agree with the popular opinion. So sometimes it's a little bit tiring to always see shows that, in my opinion, don't deserve it be the most famous viral ones, whereas shows that I love usually tend to be very underrated. And that's extremely frustrating to me because I would say I have an elite taste, although of course I am very biased. And so I also feel like I had recorded a video on that topic, years ago about BL fatigue. And that was the fact because as of right now, I have watched over 400 Thai dramas in my lifetime. And that is insane. Most of them I watched during COVID. So these were 2.5 years, 3 years where I had nothing going on in my life. Let's be for real. I had no social life, nothing. So I really relied on Thai dramas to keep me going, honestly, mentally. And that really makes it even more obvious why I have such an attachment to Thai dramas, but also why they kind of got a little bit repetitive and tiring and boring and unimaginative for me. And the third aspect is that I have probably already watched my favorite, not just Thai drama, not just BL drama, not just piece in media in general, not just TV show, of all time, which is Not Me. I will talk about Not Me a lot more. I think I've made it clear a lot on this channel before that I have a very huge attachment to that show because it was so catered to me in literally every single ways. Like the 3 main topics are my 3 center of interest, like art, politics, and queer stories. And even the cast was my favorite ship, my top 3 favorite Thai actor of Jumpon, Fluk Gawin, and Montano Chai. And even the rest of the cast, I literally love all of them. So it was just the perfect show. Literally, I could not have written a better show for myself, even in my wildest dream. So I think, unfortunately, once you get a show that not only is good, like, on itself, but also has a very deep message, is so touching, literally life-changing. I literally made my master thesis on the political art of Not Me. So needless to say, I am very much obsessed with Not Me, even years after it finished airing. I don't think I will ever let go of that piece of media. I think it's genuinely the best Thai drama ever made, and I don't think it will ever be dethroned. So, unfortunately, I feel like once you have witnessed your favorite piece of media, it is quite hard when you see other shows that to enjoy them as you would have before, because I feel like it's like when you taste your favorite dish of all time, afterwards all the other dishes still taste good, but they don't taste as good as they would have if you hadn't tasted the best dish ever. You know what I mean? So I think for these reasons, I really wanted to kind of focus more on the Thai dramas I watch day to day, because I don't watch that much anymore. Like back 2-3 years ago, I used to watch 90 shows a year. That's crazy. Okay. And nowadays I'm more across like 40, 50 maximum. Right now, I think I am at like 30 shows, and we're way past the halfway point in the year. So I'm watching way less shows, and I want to focus more on them. And I'm also a lot more picky with the Thai dramas that I watch. So I really wanted to have this podcast kind of as a journey of me finding my love for Thai dramas again. Now, one thing, as I said, I started thinking about making this podcast in January 2025. It's been months. And I have recorded, this is the first episode, but I have actually recorded like 13 episodes already. And there's a reason why making this first episode was a little bit hard, which I will explain in a second. But I think also, during these 13 episodes, spoiler alert, I've kind of already felt my love for Thai dramas come back a little bit more. I don't know if it's because this year I felt like the shows had a better quality, or I don't know what happened. Maybe it was also a mindset change. I have no idea. And when you will listen to these other episodes, I hope you can tell me, like, maybe what you think changed for me. But the reason also I waited so long, first, there's something that has nothing to do with the series we're talking today, which is that, like, I struggled with all the assets. So when you create a podcast or a video or whatever, you need to do assets a little bit, like the visual identity and the also, musical identity of the show. And, I don't know, it's been really hard for me to figure out like what I like. I'm still not 100% satisfied, but at this point I don't want to put off putting out this show anymore. I'm kind of tired. I'm kind of over it. I said I would do it this year, and right now we're running out of time. So yeah. But the second aspect is because of 2gether in itself, the series. I think I have a very big issue with rewatching shows in general. Like most of the time, all of the time, I rewatch shows that I actually liked, or even shows that I loved. When it's shows that I loved, I feel like I put a lot of pressure that I need to be in the right conditions to watch them. So for example, Not Me, I couldn't rewatch Not Me on a random Thursday on I should rewatch it right now. No. I have to plan for it, because I know it's a very emotional, a very deep show. There's so much going on at all times. Even though I know that show by heart, I literally could tell you scene by scene retelling off of my mind, I still want to be able to enjoy that show 100%. But when it's a show that I just like, but is attached to a very nostalgic aspect of my life, it's attached to an era of my life that is no more, I feel like I also feel some pressure to rewatch it. So I definitely have a mental block to rewatch stuff, and that's why it took me over 6 months to rewatch 2gether. Now I have done it, and we're gonna get into it. Unfortunately, what I was scared of happened, which is that when you rewatch something years later, I think it's a very common fear to think that, oh, maybe I won't like it as much as I did back then. And unfortunately, I really didn't. I genuinely was 100% sure that I would rewatch 2gether and think the exact same things I used to think about it in 2020. And it is not the case. So let's get into it. So first, my first impression of the show. So for 2gether, I had this was a whole other era. Again, that was a very different Axelle. I don't really recognize myself. Since I've moved to Thailand, I have changed so much in so many ways that even though I have kept the same values and the same interests. A lot of who I am as a person have changed a lot. So at the time I was watching literally any BL show coming out. If you remember, 2020 was the year that BL shows exploded. It was the first year that Filipino BL shows started being produced, and it just exploded out of nowhere. Well, not out of nowhere because of COVID most of the time. And 2gether also had a big part in that, but we'll talk about it a little bit later. And I really was watching literally every BL show released, like ever. Literally any of them, even the shittiest, I would be watching. Okay. And since then, this has changed very much. I am very, very picky with the shows, the Thai dramas in general that I watch, and especially BL shows, because, no shade, I don't like a lot of ships or BL actors nowadays. I don't know. I'm very, very picky. So, yeah. And so my first impression is that I did watch the trailer. I think it was GMMTV 2020. So the lineup, as always, this is where I discover most of GMMTV shows. And I remember thinking, oh, this is fun. This seems fun. I didn't have any particular interest for the show. I didn't know neither Bright or Win, even though Bright had been acting for a while beforehand, and Win was a newcomer, a total newcomer. So I didn't know him at all. So for the synopsis is very simple. Basically, you have Tyne, who is kind of a player, a straight boy, if you will, and he is being purchased by Green, who is a very effeminate gay guy. We'll talk about that. And Tyne decides that, and Tyne has tried to reject him so many times, but Green just won't have it. So Tyne decides to have, first he tries to have a girl pretend to be his girlfriend. It doesn't work. So he tries to have a guy, but it needs to be like a hot guy and a guy that even Green finds attractive and cool. And they decide to go for Sarawat, who is a very popular guy. He's a musician, but he's also very aloof, very cold. He has literally a fan club of girls running behind him. We'll talk about that. That was one of the aspects that I didn't remember being so not grating. It was a little bit grating, but like just, I don't know. I didn't like it at all. On a rewatch, at the time, I didn't notice. I didn't care for it at all. But on a rewatch, I was like, bitch, that's just too much. Like, that's so weird. Anyways, we'll talk about that. So, Tyne, pursues Sarawat to ask him to be his fake boyfriend for days and days until Sarawat finally, accepts. And also Tyne joins the music club to be near Sarawat. So, basically, they agree to be fake, like, not fake boyfriends, but they agree that Sarawat will fake flirting with Tyne. And then they fall in love. This is a romance show, of course. So that's the basic synopsis. So now the characters, there's a lot of characters in this show. I think this show really, I feel like at the very end of 2019, 2020 is when we started seeing shows. Like, no, I feel like BL shows have always had a lot of characters. When I think about Lovesick, about Make It Right, like the two first Thai BL shows of all time, there's always been a lot of cast, but this show in particular has a lot of people. And, back in the day, again, I didn't quite notice how underdeveloped everyone is. And it's something, this is how I know that my taste has evolved so much and I've become so much more pickier after watching 400 Thai dramas in my lifetime. Because at the time I didn't really give a fuck that no one was quite developed, except for Tyne and Sarawat. And even Tyne and Sarawat, are they that developed, that complex characters? No. So anyways, so we have first Tyne, played by Win Metawin. So Tyne is definitely a very, he's called the Tyne chic guy. He's like a very kind of a little bit full of himself. He's very interested in girls, as well as his whole friend group are also very like flirty with girls. And he has never had a successful relationship. He is very much, I think he's a very, like, good guy. There's nothing, I think Win Metawin in that role is really good. Spoiler alert, I love Tyne a lot more than Sarawat. Even back in the day, like, Tyne was always my favorite of the two by far. However, he's kind of basic. There's nothing much to say about Tyne. Like, I think he's fun. I think he's fun to follow along. I think he's lovable. I don't have much to say about him. Then we have Sarawat, played by Bright Washiwarit. Sarawat is a very confusing love interest because he's very push and pull. He's very much like a tsundere, but also just very flirty at times. He's just a weird. I think he's one of the weirdest love interests. Like, when I was rewatching the show, I was really like, oh my god, I didn't remember the lines and the dialogue and the chemistry being so on and off. Like, there's cute moments and there's other moments where I'm like, what the fuck was that? So, Sarawat is, I think he has a lot of qualities that, are quite universal in a lot of love interests, like in romance books and romance shows, which is like he's the code, like you can't crack him at the beginning and then you realize, oh, he's been in love with the main character all along. That's very much Sarawat, but the way he's written is a lot more confusing than those other characters. Usually I love these characters, by the way, but here, I don't know. I don't hate Sarawat. I think he has very good moments. I think the fact that Bright is such a pretty face really helps his role, for sure. Yeah. Then we have Green, played by Gun Korawit. Green is, honestly, I really liked Green and Tyne. I remember really loving Green and Tyne's friendship in the sequel to 2gether, but in this show he's kind of annoying, kind of useless, kind of a plot device, and I don't like that he's a very stereotype of effeminate gaze, which is kind of pushy, seen kind of as predatory and like cannot take no as an answer. I really hate that aspect of his character at all, even though he is redeemed a little bit in the end. Then we have Fong, played by Khauteng Tanawat. And we have, what are the other friends? We have Peak, played by Plumpong Pongtipat, Alewa. Pongpisan. And we have Om, played by JJ Shayakan. These are the three friends of Tyne. They are basically all the same characters. They are very much players, obsessed with girls, very much the supportive side characters. They're here for Tyne, and they give very bad advice. Very, very forgettable. In my opinion, the group of friends here are really bad. The friendship is not developed. And yeah, I even back in the day, I remember like in 2020, especially after seeing Theory of Love, which is written by the same author, G.T. Rain, and Theory of Love, of course, I love a lot more than 2gether. Duh. Afghan. Duh. And also it's just a better show in every single way, and I don't care. Girl, anyway, all of that to say. And I really felt like already kind of bored by the friend groups in 2gether back in 2020, because I remember like I feel like in Theory of Love, the friend group is such an important part of the show, and it's so much more developed, and you can actually feel the friendship between these characters, which is not the case here. There are plot devices, so yeah. Then we have Man, who is Sarawat's best friend, played by Mac Shinarat. We have Type, played by Top Tap Jirakid Girl. Who is Tyne's big brother. Then we have Pukong, played by Frank Tanastaran, who plays Sarawat's younger brother. And then we have Pimin, played by Drake Satabut. So Drake, Pimin is kind of the villain of the show. If you don't know, I'm a huge Drake fan. I actually met him in real life. I fucking love him, and I'm heartbroken that he left GMMTV. Yeah, I just love him so much. He was literally the best when I met him. So nice. So fucking, oh my god. He's literally such a fan of him, since literally 2018. So, yeah, not to brag. But all of that to say that, yeah, Pimin is kind of set up as the villain. He is another Green, but he's much more like straight presenting, where he has a crush on Tyne and doesn't take no for an answer. And he's just really fucking creepy. And I don't like Min at all, but I do love Drake so fucking much. So Then we have Boss, played by my baby, Gunsmash Shanagan, who is also a best friend of Sarat. Very much a cliche. He's very, like, always making really weird faces. He talks in a weird voice, which is not Gunsmash's real voice at all. Boss, I'm not a huge fan. Then we have, Dim, who is the, PDM, who is what? The leader of the music club, played by Guy Sivakorn. I actually quite liked PDM. I think he was quite fun. And I liked his kind of secret relationship with Green. And then we have Pierre, played by Nene Pornapan, who I just learned, that was my Thai friend who made me learn this. She's apparently Bright Washiwarit's like current girlfriend, which I felt kind of cute. I mean, I feel like they met on the show and then years later they date. That's kind of cute. But I feel like there already was rumors like back in the day that they were dating. I don't know why this just came to my head. I don't know, girl. I don't follow most of these people. Then we have Pear, played by Love Patroni. Pear is very much a plot device as well. She is the girl that Tyne likes for like 5 seconds, literally 5 seconds. And then she ends up with Boss, played by Gunsmile, which is fucking cray. Then we have Earn, played by my queen, Firma Chanan. Also quite useless, but in my opinion, more fun than Pear. Like more developed than Pear, actually. And then we have, we have so many other people. We have like first from Ja First, playing Min's friend. We have View Benyapa playing a small role. Junwan Minmo is playing a small role. And also we have, Gigi Sarosha playing, Pam, who is, the ex-love of Sarawat. So as you can see, as I said, there's a lot of fucking characters. And honestly, most of them don't even matter. No shade. So in general, the characters are fine. For me, they are definitely underdeveloped. I prefer, I always say it, and because this is the first episode, you will listen it again, because I've pre-recorded 13 episodes before this, but they will air after this. You will hear me talk about this a lot more later, but I think there's two types of people. There's plot-focused people and character-focused people, meaning that most people, I feel like maybe like 70% of people prefer the plot. So if the plot is interesting, even if the characters aren't that developed, it's fine and they will still enjoy it. But for character-focused people, I would rather have a more boring or basic plot if the characters go through an interesting journey, go through interesting growth. For me, it's more important to see characters grow. I'm all about the people. I've been obsessed with people in every sort of media forever. In art, I love portraits the most. In books, I also need to have a very deep character exploration. For me, people are and even in my life, I feel like my best moments are with people. I thrive with people. I love observing people, analyzing people, learning to know people. So for me, it's a very deep aspect of how I like my media. And unfortunately, I feel like Together's characters they're not bad. I'll say that. They are not bad. Then we have the cast and acting. So the cast for me, rewatching this, I felt so freaking, nostalgic at moments. And I really felt like, damn, like, I feel like the 2019-2020 era of GMMTV is the era I'm perhaps the most attached to. I feel like the era that you really lock into a fandom is when you, like, the era that you'll always be attached the most to. So in general, I was very nostalgic rewatching this because I was like, oh, this cast, not really Brightwing, because Brightwing literally just did Together, the sequel to Together, which I forgot the name to, and the Together, the movie, which I realized I have never watched. Like, I had plans to watch it for months and months, not really for Sarawat and Tyne, but more for Drake Frank and Mike Top Topped, but I never watched it. And honestly, now I feel like the carriage has left the station, if you will. Like, I don't really want to watch it now, 5 years later. So, I feel like watching this cast, it's such a like bubble, a nostalgic bubble of like what was GMMTV at the time. And there's actors that have gone on and been so much bigger and have had their own ships. Like, for example, Carlton, who was like a side characters in this. And yet now he's a very big actor, very beloved at GMMTV. And then there's a lot of people who have quit GMMTV, like Mike and Top Tap, their ship broke down. And I'm really sad about that, girl. Rewatching them together, I was like, oh, Mike Top Top. I really love them. And even Drake and Frank, they broke up. If you don't know, Drake and Frank was actually my favorite ship after Off Gun of all time. I actually adore them. And when they broke up, like the whole Drake Frank situation to this day, I feel like a conspiracy theorist, but that whole military service thing with Frank has always felt so weird to me, and I never understood what the fuck was going on, especially since GMMTV, when he got drafted, said that he would come back after the military service, and he never did. But Drake and Frank are still friends to this day. Anyway, it makes no sense to me. But yeah, just seeing all these actors, like Gunsmile has left GMMTV, it just really, and film and Love both are in the two biggest GL ships at GMMTV now, not together. Even View and June, who knew that they would become a ship? Then they broke up. Now they're in two different GL ships as well. So for me, the cast is really good. The acting, now listen, the acting is not bad. I think the acting is also, if you take every single actor in this and you put this show and you against all of the other roles they've had, I think literally every single actor in this has had a way better role. Like, even the smaller ones, even the side characters, side characters, I feel like all of them have had such better roles in terms of acting, and that includes Bright Wynn. I feel like Wynn at the time, this was his first role, so he has a little bit of awkwardness. We'll talk about the chemistry. For me, that was a big issue that I never really understood back in the day when this was a criticism of the show, but now I understand. We're gonna get to that. But I feel like, I don't know, I feel like the acting, even Bright, I was kind of shocked because I think Bright is a pretty good actor. He also had a lot more experience than Wynn, but I think actually Wynn is a better actor in Together here. I think Bright has good moments. In terms of chemistry, having heart eyes, I think Bright is better. But in terms of, consistency, I think Wynn is better, actually. But yeah, I feel like the acting is not good. It's not bad. It's okay. It's okay. I think there's nothing, like, there's no performance in it that makes me feel like, wow, there's like, this is good. I did like the, Tyne crying scenes. I think he was really good at those. So he did eat that. Again, that's his first role ever. And again, this is why I think Wynn is actually a better actor than Bright in that show, because I feel like Sarawat is so withdrawn emotionally from, everything. And I feel like even it was part because Sarawat is a more like cold and he doesn't really show his emotions as a character. But I think also Bright was a little bit emotionally withdrawn from the character. I don't know. That's my theory. I think that will be an unpopular opinion. I hope the Bright Wynn girlies don't come for me 5 years later, girl. Anyways, now the writing of the show. And this is when, that was the biggest shock to me, like rewatching this show. I was truly stunned, you guys, because I had really fond memories of this show. Before I get on to the writing, I do want to say that this show I had always a weird relationship with, because I was actually quite into it at the time. It did come out at such a perfect time in the cultural zeitgeist, which was COVID. It came out in February 2020. Literally in March 2020, we all got shut down. Not all, but most countries got shut down. And the show continued to become, and the show like really took off around the halfway point of the series, when everyone or most people in the world were under lockdown, especially Americans, and Americans were really into the show. So I feel like I always resented that show quite a lot, even though I loved it from the get-go. I watched it since day one, because I always thought that it was undeserving of its, virality. And I also think it's interesting, and I'll leave that here, and you guys again can tell me in the comments. I feel like since Together, which was at the halfway point of BL. So BL has started in 2014. We're now like 11 years into the BL genre in Thailand, okay? And Together came out in 2020. So in the halfway point of that, for real. And yet, I feel like Together is still to this day the most viral and the most known BL show of all time still, even though we've had 5.5 years since then to produce more viral shows, more viral BL shows. And for me, I find it interesting that there's been a lot of popular shows. There's been a lot of viral shows, but none to the extent of Together. Also, have you guys noticed that I chose my t-shirts accordingly today? Anyways, that I really, I always ask myself, like, is BL stalling? Is BL kind of becoming not innovating enough? Or why is that? Why is that Together is still to this day, almost 6 years later now, because we're at the end of 2025, like still the biggest BL show ever? So I would love to have your feedback on that. For me, that means that the Thai entertainment industry isn't doing as much as they could to have another big viral BL on their hands. Or also, I feel like maybe all the people in the world who are interested in BL are already watching it. I don't know. You guys will tell me. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot more people who watch BL though. I feel like it's still quite underrated and still a very much a subgenre, right, of Asian dramas which are a lot more famous in the world, especially like K-dramas, Chinese dramas, J-dramas. So I find it interesting that we have been kind of stalling since Together was released. And I really resented Together at the time because, again, it came from the same writer as Theory of Love. And in my opinion, Theory of Love would have deserved a lot more to go viral. I don't think Theory of Love, for its topic and for its subject, would have gotten as viral though. I also think one of the reasons why Together, and let me mince my words a little bit, is I think that Bright and Win are very attracted, but they are also, in my opinion, attractive both to the Thai beauty standard, but also to the foreign beauty standard, meaning that especially Bright as a halfie has a lot of more like European/American features that I think profited in their huge success and boosted the show. I think there is a lot of bias against Asian people, and I think a lot of people actually just clicked on that show, not even because they saw Bright and Win on the YouTube thumbnails and thought that this looked like a American show, and they didn't know that it was going to be a Thai show with Asian people, because I think there's such a bias against Asian people and Asian dramas that the reason this show in part reached such a bigger audience that usually wouldn't have watched any Asian dramas was for this reason. I don't know if I'm crazy. I don't mean to be insulting or to be saying that this show deserves only success because both of the main actors can look a little white under certain circumstances. But in my opinion, it does participate in that, on top of the fact that it was COVID, everyone was shut in, so people were on the internet, were on YouTube, so much more, right? So I always resented Together a little bit because, in my opinion, it never deserved the success it accrued. But since then, my more bitter feelings towards the show have totally dwindled. So when I rewatched it, I really expected to actually maybe even enjoy it more, because there was only the initial liking that I had for the show and not all the bitterness that this was the show that had become so viral, instead of other shows that in my opinion deserved it more, like Theory of Love or Three Will Be Free. So the writing is not that good. I think a lot of the lines, like the "I kiss you till you drop," I didn't remember that it was so sudden and out of nowhere and so random. I think Sarawat as a character is very confusing because he's very hot and cold, but not in a way that makes sense, because once he actually decides to hit on Tyne, he becomes a lot softer, even though he still is more cold. Like, he looks cold. He's not smiling all the time. He's not like, he's very much like cold energy, but he is a lot more consistent as a character from then on. But before it's obvious that he's actually hitting on Tyne, I feel like his behavior makes no sense. Also, the writing, the ending of the show, I remember the ending of the show wasn't that good and was very much criticized at the time. And at the time, I hadn't really cared for it. I was like, oh, that's fine. It's kind of not the best ending, but whatever. And rewatching it, I really took into account like how fucking dumb that ending is. I feel like they bring Pam as an obstacle to Tyne and Sarawat way too late into the show, and it's way too random, and it has no weight because they've already been dating. We know they're in love with each other. Like, why are you bringing a random girl like this? This is like such a dumb tension. Even Pear is such a plot device, and she barely matters in the show, and I don't really like the idea that you're using women to be plot devices in the stories of men. For me, that's something that bothers me a lot. And there's just so many aspects of the show where I felt like they went the most basic route. Again, as I said, all the fangirls consistently following Sarawat felt so... First of all, it felt a little bit like it mirrored the way that fangirls were obsessed with Bright and Win after the show, because they were the first GMMTV actors to suffer so much at the hands of their fans. I mean, I remember that Bright had to break up with his girlfriends that he had been with for years at the time because they got like harassed so much. And literally, I remember that like fans would follow them. Like, there was a lot of stories at the time of fans really not respecting boundaries. And it was kind of the first time ever that GMMTV had to come out with statements and condemn these types of actions. So for me, the fact that all these girls are in the show following Sarawat really mirrored the way that just a few months later, once the show aired, real life fans were treating Bright and Win. And for me, it did make me feel uncomfortable. Also, I feel like it's so unrealistic. I think it once again mocks fangirls when fangirls are literally the only reason GMMTV is that successful of a company. Fangirls are the one who show up for their artists, to their events, buy the merch. Like, literally, women have always carried fandom spaces since literally the dawn of times. Women, literally, if I wanted to be an actress, a singer, whatever it was, I would want a fan base of women, because women are so much more dedicated and thoughtful to the fandoms they participate in. However, and so it really bothers me when I see fangirls. I literally had talked about it in a essay video like years ago on this channel, okay? Because it really bothers me to use fangirls as such a plot device, as if they're just mindless robots obsessed. They're like, Sarawat, Sarawat! They keep screaming in the whole show. I just fucking hated it. It was really grating. And for me, what's frustrating too is that it not only does it mock fangirls, when again, fangirls are such a big part of why GMMTV is successful. I mean, GMMTV now more than ever relies on their fans buying merch and stuff. Have you seen how, again, if you've been in the fandom as long as I have, you have seen how much more merch and concerts and fan cons GMMTV has been organizing in the past 2 years compared to before, because they have realized that that's what earns them the most money. So, yeah, for me, it's really upsetting. I've always hated the fangirl trope in any BL shows. And it really made me uncomfortable also because it's so unrealistic. Like, I wouldn't be a fan. First of all, I wouldn't be a fan of a random guy that's hot at my university, girl. I would be a fan of an actual star. You know what I mean? But even if I like the guy, I joined the fangirl. First of all, that's weird. But anyways, even if I did that, once I saw that the guy treated his fangirls so badly, like Sarawat did, Sarawat is fucking dick. I'm sorry. Okay, the fangirls are constantly overstepping and they're not good people either, but Sarawat from the get-go is not nice to people he doesn't know. And I don't know. I never picked up on it that much back in the day. I think in the day I was just enjoying the show for its simpleness, and I wasn't like looking into it too harshly. But now I am, and that's how much has changed in my media consumption. Now I cannot just watch around and be like, oh, you know what I mean. So for me, I feel like the writing wasn't that good. And that's kind of disappointing because, again, I remember the show more fondly than it ended up being when I rewatched it. Because basically when I rewatched it, the first, I think 2-3 episodes, honestly, I really struggled getting into it. I was literally like fast forwarding and like trying to force myself to watch it. Then it kind of got me once I could tell that Sarawat has a real crush on Tyne, and I kind of like the one-sided aspect of it, and Tyne not getting the clues. I really like one-sided love, if you don't know, because I think it's a really great way to add tension, especially in queer stories. I think one-sided love is very, very common in general, but especially in queer stories, I think it's very common to fall in love for a friend and like change who you're liking. I think it's such a core queer experience also. So for me, I did, like, they gained me and then they lost me again in the second half of the show. Like from episode 7 onwards, I was really bored and I really had to fast forward. Unfortunately, I did not lock in because I couldn't. I was so bored. I think the writing is really surface level. Nothing is quite developed. It's really much going through the motions, and I think it is a strength of the show too, because you can watch it without overthinking it. But also there's like almost nothing happening in this show. Yeah, I don't know. Again, the way that I remembered it, if I had done this review without rewatching it before, and this is why rewatching it was so important, I would have been giving such a much more positive review to it, because I remembered it so fondly. Like, genuinely, this show I had a lot of affection and love for, and when I rewatched it, I was like, it's not that good. Like, you know what I mean? So yeah, I just think the writing is lacking on every level, to be honest. I think just the characters are not that well developed. Like, the story is not that well developed. There's barely any tension. And for me, tension is what makes a show. Like, yes, give me a jealousy plot that actually hits. You know what I mean? It's so rare that nowadays, especially like jealousy in BL shows and GL shows actually hits. Like, actually show me a possible secondary pairing that might win against the main pairing, and that makes one of the characters super jealous and super hurt. Like, give me tension! We are losing the plot. You are losing the tension. Now, the cinematography, this show is very, very basic. I have noticed though that it has a lot more locations than I feel like current GMMTV shows. Something I've noticed in 2025, because GMMTV has changed their model completely. Like in 2025, almost all of the shows they announced in their lineup were ship shows. There were like 2 or 3 shows that were not BL or GL ship centered, and this makes it so they are definitely banking on their ships, because again, this is what sells the fan cons and the concerts and the merch and all of that stuff, and much more than straight shows. So now they're kind of giving up on their straight shows or non-ship shows, which is kind of sad, because I think that you can have good shows that are not BL or GL ship centered. But anyways, that's a whole other thing. But I've noticed that by doing that, because now they're doing so many shows, because they have so many established pairings at GMMTV, right? I feel like nowadays they have a lot less locations and they have a lot less scenes inside of an episode. I rewatched Theory of Love with my friends, and in Theory of Love I realized there were at least 20 scenes per episode, and there were a lot of locations that we saw only once or twice in the show, and I felt this made the world of the show feel so much more bigger and grander and actually developed. But I realized that this year I feel like most of the shows, they have only like 10 scenes per episode or like 12 scenes per episode, and there's a lot less locations. Like, it's almost always in the same 3 or 4 locations, and then you have a few locations that are a little bit more different and more original that we see throughout the show, like once or twice. But I feel like we are losing the depth that these older shows that had actually were way less produced and were sometimes a lot less famous had, that were really good. And I think, Together has this aspect where, even though it has, the locations are a little bit more basic because it's all on campus, so it's very, very repetitive, but at least there's a lot of scenes inside one episode, which I did appreciate. So the cinematography, very mid, like almost all GMMTV shows, like nothing incredible. Then the pace of the show is not good, in my opinion. I think they lost me at the beginning, they didn't have me, then they gained me, then they lost me again. I think the show is actually quite boring. There's nothing much happening. I think especially the pace for the side ships, so Min Pukong and Man Type, both of these side ships, I feel like they're so underdeveloped. Like, we don't see them at all in the first half of the show, and they only have the second half to be developed, especially Man Type. Literally, they start interacting in the last 3 episodes, and they get together in the very last episode, and you're like, oh, you know what I mean? So I feel like the side ships, for the pace for the side ships is so badly done, and you can tell they were clearly like a second thought. And even the pace for like the main story is very slow, and like there's not much going on at all. I felt like it was pretty not good. I don't know if I'm being too harsh because I just finished watching the show yesterday, but like, I feel like a lot of the like pixie dust that I had thrown in front of my eyes when I watched it in 2020, which allowed me to really enjoy the show, has gone. And now I'm seeing that this show really doesn't have much to it except hot main actors, which for me is not enough. And you guys know that. Next, we have the ships and the chemistry. So the ships, I do like all 3 ships, even 4 ship if you count Dim and Green, even though they're not even developed, girl. They have 3 scenes together altogether. But, for Sarawat and Tyne, I actually do like them. I think they have a fun dynamic. They have a very different dynamic. It's very much like straight bros dynamic for sure. But I think they had a lot of cute moments as well. Yeah, I think the chemistry is a little bit weird between them, to be honest, because it's very inconsistent. And that's what shocked me the most, is that, of course, I remember like the criticism that they felt like straight bros was already existent in 2020. And I kind of agreed with it, but at the time I still liked them, and I thought their chemistry was a lot better than when I rewatched it. Once again, rewatching it, I was kind of shocked at how inconsistent the chemistry is. For example, Bright is much better at doing hard eyes than Win. And most of the show, Bright does look a lot more in love and is better at looking in love than Win. But I think, again, in terms of acting, Win was more consistent, and Bright, because Sarawat is such a weird character that is so inconsistent, like hot and cold, and yeah, very inconsistent. I think it was quite hard for Bright to act consistently as well. And I think the chemistry in it is kind of weird, because you can tell they like each other, but it doesn't seem as profound and as deep as a lot of other BL ships. And I think nowadays, if the show was released today, it would be the chemistry level would be unacceptable for this pairing, because nowadays I feel like even the straightest of actors, when they go into BL, they look like they're ready to suck. You know what I mean? Like, they're down for it. You know what I mean? And that's good acting. I feel like your sexuality shouldn't, influence your acting in general, if you're a good actor. But, I felt like here, for example, for sure, the chemistry was very on and off. There were scenes where they had a lot of cute moments and they had chemistry in these moments. And other scenes where you're like, oh, this feels like just friends who are forced to look like they're dating. And even like the fact that there's not that many kiss scenes, which I don't really care if there's that many kiss scenes, but I feel like, especially in the second half of the show, there's no kiss scenes at all. There's like 1 or 2 like cheek kiss scenes, and that's it. And I'm like, oh, like you guys kissed before you got together, but once you got together, you literally not, I don't think they kissed once, like when they got together. I'm like, what? And they move in together like so quickly too. I forgot to say that in the writing. I remember that being a little bit jarring at the time, but again, I think I had like a rose-colored glasses at the time, so I was like, oh, that's fine. But I was like, you guys are moving together, but we've never seen you kiss like passionately, or even kiss at all as a couple. And like, you guys look so awkward about sex. Like when they offered that condom bouquet, you're like, these guys are never gonna have sex. Like, not to look like a perv, but I cannot imagine Sarawat and Tyne having sex. Like, for me, it does not look realistic. And even ships that I don't like, with actors that I don't like or whatever, I feel like I can still imagine them having sex because they actually look like a fucking couple. You know what I mean? And here it's not really the case. I'm sorry. Now for man type, I think the chemistry was a little bit better. Again, they're so underdeveloped, and most of their ship is spent with type avoiding man and being kind of an asshole to man. But when they got together, that one scene when they get together, in my opinion, the chemistry is chemistrying. And in my opinion, if Mike and Top Top hadn't broken up for whatever reason it was, they could have become such a big ship. I think they had such potential. I think both of them are really great actors, and they're both really great people. Like, I've followed them for so many years. I really love them both. And I think, unfortunately, like, it's really sad because I think I could see them today being one of the older BL ships, like with older actors, that is very, very successful. Because for me, they have the it factor, they have the chemistry, and in Ton Honcholati, the worst GMMTV BL of all time, they literally carried that show on their little tiny skinny shoulders. Okay, they really ate they really ate the Ton Honcholati show so bad, and you can see their chemistry in there. Like, that was straight up fire. And so yeah, for me, the chemistry for Man Type was much better than Sarah Tyne. But the story, the ship in itself, Man Type, I don't really care for them. I'm sorry. Like, they're fine, but I don't hate them, but I don't love them either. And then Min Pukong in Together, bad. I don't like them at all. There's no chemistry, which is crazy because I think Drake and Frank actually had a lot of chemistry. If you watch My Tea, that show is kind of a disaster, but the only thing holding it together is the chemistry between Drake and Frank. Again, I am biased. I used to adore Drake and Frank so much. I really feel like here they're not developed, but in the sequel for Together, I think they're very, very cute. And I really like them in the sequel. But I feel like here they were kind of done dirty. Whatever, you know. And yeah, and they broke up right after it, so we never got to see them together. Anyways, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Then the music, I think definitely the music aspect of the show is the biggest attraction. I think there are 3 BL shows, in my opinion, that do the music aspect the best. First was Lovesick, the first ever BL show. And then there was Together, and then, My School President. I think that in order of who did it the best, for me, number 1 would be, I'm biased. I think it would be Lovesick, but My School President is very, very nearby. Then there are My School Presidents, and in third place, Together. Together, I love that almost all the songs in the show are by Scrub. It gives the show a musical identity. I remember that at the time, all of the Scrub songs featured on the show became trending again, and literally became famous again in the charts for many, many months. I think it allowed also, because that show became so big, like internationally, it allowed a lot of people to listen to Thai music for the very first time, which I love. Again, I'm a very huge Thai music fan. And so, I genuinely really enjoyed the music aspect. I think there's a little bit too many scenes of them playing the guitar and strumming the guitar and singing. I did skip most of them. For me, once you've seen the show once, it's kind of boring, and I don't really like singing segments in show. I think they're all like kind of melt into one another. But yeah, I think it's a very common opinion, though. I've heard this opinion very often, that most people don't really like singing segments in shows. But again, I like them a lot in My School President, and I really love them in Lovesick. I think they're very cute because they're not all the time. Especially Lovesick has 48 episodes, and there's not songs in every episode, which does help to make the songs in the show feel more special. But for Together, I did like the aspect and the tie-in of music. I think it's one of the better shows with music, because we all know that Thai BL shows are obsessed with having a guitar somewhere and someone like singing and playing the guitar. It always happens. And I feel like it's definitely one of the better shows around music. So I will not criticize any of that. And I still have a lot of the 2gether soundtrack saved, on my Spotify, because it's really good. Next, the costume design. I think the costume design is very, very basic, as almost always with GMMTV shows. I did love all the little sweaters they made Tyne wear. I like the style that they gave Tyne. I think it was to soften him a little bit, because again, Win Metawin looks so much like a straight bro in that show, and he's supposed to be the bottom, and I think they were like, pink, let's give him pink stuff. But I did like that style for sure. Apart from that, like, nothing stand out. Yeah. Oh, I did hate the jackets they give Min. Go rewatch the show. Look at the jackets they give Min. It's like super patterned jackets. It looks terrible. I hate it so much. Again, they did my boy Drake so wrong in that role. Next, the rewatchability. I will not rewatch this show. I think that was the last time in my entire life that I rewatched this show. Maybe I'll rewatch it when I'm like 50 and like reminiscing about the good old days, you know, but I genuinely, again, all of this like shocked me. I genuinely expected to rewatch it and like, yes, feel so much nostalgia, which I did feel, but like feel the same exact feelings that I felt at the time. And unfortunately, a lesson that this made me learn is that you can never feel the same exact feelings for something like again. And that's why a lot of people, for the shows they love the most, right, they are like, oh, I wish I could rewatch that show for the first time again. Because yes, watching something for the first time oftentimes is the most special. Not always. Sometimes I've rewatched the show and actually enjoyed it more on the rewatch. But yeah, in general, I feel like it's not the most rewatchable show for me personally. I think, again, if you like this ship, if you like Right Wind, it is rewatchable. It is a fun enough time. But for me, again, if you haven't watched it in 5 years and expect to like love it as much as you did back in the day, maybe you'll be as surprised in not a good way as me, because I genuinely was stunned. When I felt a little bit bored, I was like, oh, like, I should be attached to these characters, but actually I'm not. And that's kind of sad. Again, I've changed a lot, so maybe there's that as well. So for me, the rewatchability is not good. I will not rewatch this show. And then my enjoyment out of 5, if it was back in the day, I would say this would have been like a 4 out of 5 stars, or 4.5 stars actually, maybe. And now I think I would give it a 2.5. I think there are fun moments. I think, yes, I still enjoyed it, but I didn't enjoy it nearly as much as I did back in the day. And that was a little bit sad. And lastly, for my rating. So back in the day, I gave that show an 8 stars out of 10. Nowadays, I don't know. I wouldn't change my rating, because I think changing it now, when I think I'm a lot more harsher, would be a little bit biased. Maybe I would give it a 7.5, but I'm gonna keep my rating on my drama list as an 8, because that was how I felt about the show at that time, and I don't want to like change it. And the average rating for 2gether is 7.7 stars out of 10, which I feel is pretty good, because again, the show is not formidable in almost any way. No shade. And next, how I would fix it, honestly, I would rewatch it from 0. Like, genuinely, I think I would make Sarawat make a little bit more sense as a character. Maybe explain why at the beginning, even though he already likes Tyne at that moment, he's acting such like a dick with him. Why? Maybe he has trauma. Maybe when he was in high school, he learned to be very like mean with the people he liked. I don't know. Like, give me some backstory as to why he's like that. And I would definitely develop the side ships a lot more, because I think they were a big strength of the show. I would make Min less of an annoying character. I would make Green less of like a cliche of effeminate gays who pursue straight presenting men and don't take no for an answer. I would fix pretty much everything. I think the basis of the show is good, but there's a lot of improvements that could be done in literally every single category. And the chemistry needs to be fixed. In my opinion, rewatching it now 5 years later, it really hit me how inconsistent the chemistry is, and how like I feel like that would not fly today, even as hot as Bright and Wayne are and as attractive, and they're both pretty good actors, but I think that would not fly today, or maybe it would, I don't know, but in my opinion, if I watch this today, I would be like, the chemistry is not good. Because nowadays I feel like we expect so much more in terms of chemistry from BL actors. Like every year, I think the level and the bar is raised. So for me, yes, that would be perhaps the biggest aspect that I think. But even the writing, I would rewrite the whole show from the get-go, because in my opinion, there's a lot of stuff where it could have been a lot better. And lastly, who would like this show? Well, clearly a lot of people. A lot of people have liked this show, and I think that's totally fine. I think I liked this show a lot at some point. Even rewatching it, I didn't hate it. I still liked it. Okay. I think it's a show that is very easy to watch, but probably if it had come out in 2025, I don't think it would be as popular. So if I want to answer my own question, which is like, does 2gether still hold up in 2025? In my opinion, it doesn't quite hold up as well, which is crazy. I never thought I would say that, because in my opinion, like other shows that I watched back in the day, when I rewatched them, although they definitely have aged, like I feel like most of the time they do still hold up, even though I think that they wouldn't be as popular nowadays probably if they were released, because there's so much competition, right? But I feel like this show, like, there's a lot of flaws, and they're all small. It's a lot of small flaws, but for me, they really do add up. And yeah, I was really, really shocked, you guys. And I didn't mean to start this podcast with a little bit of a negative. I don't think I was overtly negative. I hope you guys can understand where I'm coming from. And I would love to have your opinion on 2gether if you have rewatched it, or if you've never rewatched it, or whatever. Unfortunately, the next episode will also be a little bit of a doozy. I will be very mad. And yeah, you will have bear through this. I think you guys will like that episode even more than this one, because it's a show that I think a lot of people loved, and I think a lot of people are going to be stunned to see that I do not like this show one bit. So anyways, that was it for the first episode ever of Axelle's Guide to Thai Dramas. What the hell? Finally, I've got around to rewatch 2gether and film this episode. Oh my god, this has been so many months. Oh my god, of waiting and like gathering my forces to do this rewatch and do this episode. So I'm so happy that this finally happened. I'm so happy. So anyways, I will see you next week. I will ask you if you can to go rate this podcast and follow this podcast also on other platforms. It's on every platform that podcasts are, like Spotify. I'm hoping Apple Music, YouTube Music. I don't really know how to set this up yet. We'll see. And yes, I really hope that you will support this. Please like this episode. All of that. Maybe I should have said that at the beginning to boost the ratings. Oops. And yeah, I'll see you next week for my banger of a rant about a show that I think you guys, most of you guys liked. I think the comments are going to be fun on that one. Bye bye.